Hey, what's up? My name is Darley. I'm an audio engineer from New York City, and today I'm reviewing for you guys the Warm Audio 73-EQ. One of the things that I want you to keep in mind is that this review is more of a discussion than it is a review where I'm gonna give a quick answer. But if a quick and easy answer is what you're looking for, what I can tell you is that yes, I do recommend this. I do think it's a great sounding preamp. And I'll put some samples at the end of this, so whoever doesn't really care about the discussion part of it can go and listen to that. So, just a little bit of background about myself before we start the discussion. I've been an engineer for about 5 or 6 years now. And I worked in a commercial recording studio on Wall Street called Engine Room Audio. For the past 2 years, I've been the audio engineer for the rap group Flatbush Zombies. I was the primary tracking engineer for their Vacation in Hell album and the Beast Coast album. There was other engineers that were more involved with the mixing portion of that and all that stuff, but I was the primary tracking engineer for that. And that's just to show you where my credibility comes from. I'm not sitting here trying to show off or look who I've worked with. The reason I'm telling you this is because that experience has allowed me to use lots of equipment that I never thought that I would be able to use, especially when I was starting out. And some of the things that I can tell you is that this specific preamp doesn't sound necessarily like a Neve 1073. So, what does a Neve 1073 sound like, and why does that matter? Well, when I think about a Neve 1073, the characteristic that comes to mind is smooth. I think about how smooth it sounds. Not warm. I consider a 610 to be warm. A 1073 sounds smooth. It gives like a little bit of a presence lift, and it tends to help cut through mixes very well. And obviously, it all depends on the vocal chain. So, why does this matter? Because the Warm 73 EQ is cloning a Neve 1073. So when I say it doesn't sound like one, the first thing that comes to your mind, well, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? But no, it gets very, very, very close. It just doesn't sound like a 1073, like a Neve one. It gets the color right. You get the smoothness, but you don't get a Neve 1073. Simply put, it's not a Neve 1073. And if you think about how much a Neve 1073 costs, we're talking about like the new ones now that are rack mountable and in 500 series one. The 500 series one is $1,000, and you don't get EQs. The other ones are like $3,000. So you're spending a lot more on those than you are this. This one I got it for about $650. I got it on Reverb. I got it new. Took it like a week or so to ship, but I saved a lot of money because originally this thing cost $800, and you get EQs. So another thing that I notice is that all these clones sound different. For example, I got to use a BAE 1073. My boy Danny from Brooklyn, who has a studio called Blendworks, has that preamp. That preamp sounds more like a Neve 1073. You get a lot more smoothness. And I used to before I owned this one, I used to own a Heritage Audio Tabletop 1073. That one costs like $1,200. and that one's sounded more like a 1073, but sounded different from the BAE because when we lived in I'm saying when I went to studio in Brooklyn, I got to use his preamp, and we were using a U87, and we were comparing the preamps, and he even thought that mine sounded better than his, even though it was hard for him to admit. And his is a lot more expensive than mine. So prices, it doesn't seem like price necessarily is the defining factor for these clones. I also got to use a Vintech X73, and that's another very high-end studio popular one. It's not necessarily my favorite. For all that, I'd rather just get this one. But I'll say this: that one does achieve that smoothness that I'm talking about. But my whole thing is just like, for the price that you're paying for that Vintech X73, you might as well save up and get a Neve. So the reason I can recommend this is because of the price. Who is it targeting? You got to think about all these things when you're thinking about what this product is. This product is a 1073 clone for a fraction of the cost. You get everything that you need. You don't need to go out and spend $1,200 like I did. You don't need to spend, $2,000 for a clone. We're talking about a clone. When I think about a clone, what I think to myself is, I'm trying to cut corners and I'm trying to save money, but achieve that sound that product is aiming to be. So if you want to take a 1176 and compare it to a Warm Audio WA73, they sound completely different. That does not mean that I wouldn't get a WA76. The 1176, depending on obviously which reissue you have, I think the one that they're targeting is revision D. And from what I remember, revision D sounds a little dark. And LN also, it's the sort of the same thing. But the thing about it is that you're talking about spending $2,000 as opposed to spending $600. I'd rather just spend the $600 on a cheap clone, because if I'm gonna spend, for example, $1,400 or something like that for a clone, I might as well just save up and get the real thing. And it's the same thing with a LA2A. For example, like, a lot of people will sit there and they will argue the WA2A versus an LA2A. And one of the things that people don't think about is that fact that, yes, an LA2A, the WA2A doesn't sound like a LA2A, but an LA2A is $3,700, and the Warm is only $900. It's a huge difference. Now, where people argue is that the stem, at least as far as I remember, it might have gone up. The stem was around the same price, the SA2A, and that one cost, around the same, and it sounded significantly better to my ears. And that's not to bash Warm products. It's just to help you keep in mind that it's a budget product. It's not meant to be a a product that's necessarily competing with the real thing. It's just meant to be an entryway for somebody who's like myself, who doesn't have a lot of money to get the products and get those sounds. Obviously, once you could get your money up, go ahead, go buy the real thing. I just don't think it's justifiable to spend, let's say, $1,000 less on something that costs $3,000 for something that costs $2,000. You might as well just get the one that costs $3,000. Just keep saving. It's like that kind of mentality that I have when it comes to this product. So, with that in mind, I do love some things that this one specifically has that I've only seen on the Neve one. I don't see anybody else doing this. For example, I like the aesthetic of it. I'm not the biggest fan of the bright warm logo, that bright orange warm logo. But for the most part, it doesn't bother me. It's not like I sit there thinking about, that that logo is bothering me. It's not changing the sound of anything. And it's the same thing with the with all the knobs on the EQ section of this preamp. It's all it feels good. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break. It looks like they really put time into their products, and that's why I'm an advocate for their products. If you were to ask me, hey, what do I think about Warm? I think they're a great company. They're bringing you things that cost thousands upon thousands of dollars for a fraction of the price. So I'm gonna leave some vocal samples, and what I'm gonna be using is gonna be a SM7B. If tomorrow you feel lonely, it's okay. Te prometo, princesita, volveré. If tomorrow you feel lonely, it's okay. Te prometo, princesita, volveré. If tomorrow you feel lonely, it's okay. Te prometo, princesita, volveré. If tomorrow you feel lonely, it's okay. Te prometo, princesita, volveré. So, thank you guys for watching. I know this is a little bit unorthodox of a video, so I really do hope that you guys enjoyed what you guys have seen today. But I really like this form of just discussing the product rather than sitting there and telling you all these facts about it. The real world use of it makes complete sense. And it's a product that, for the price, is very, very competitive with other things. And I wouldn't put this over. I wouldn't buy this over any other clone, because it's a clone and it does what it needs to do for a fraction of the price. Now, when I decide, hey, I want to buy a Neve 1073, that's a different story. This one will likely go out the window. And that's just because, it's not because it sounds bad. It sounds great. It's just because now I have what this is emulating. I have what I want. So, and I mean, some people look at it from this perspective as well, right? Some people look at it like you just have different flavors of the same thing. It's like a LA2A. Some people say that all LA2As don't sound the same, which is true for the most part. But if you can get them to sound, if you have a WA2A and an SA2A and an LA2A and the Audioscape LA2A, if you have all these compressors that are essentially emulating one thing, they all sound different. It's all just different flavors. So you can consider this one as a different flavor of a 1073 if you want to. And yeah. I can recommend this, and I hope you guys do get it. It's not a bad product. It's a very well made one, and it's gonna rock. Peace out, guys.